Hi everyone, I'm Lori with Behavior Education at Spirit Keeper Animal Sanctuary, and I'm going to update you about my Macklot's python Shran. When I first got Shran, he got here in July of 2023, July 12th, 2023. So he has been here a little over a year, about 15 months now. And I had a lot of people ask me when he first got here, what do I think of Macklot's pythons? How do they compare to Brettle's pythons? How do they compare to the other snakes I work with? And I can't make that comparison as soon as the snake gets here. I have to have time to interact with that animal, which means that animal has to have time to settle in. And when I say interact with that animal, and I do all choice-based interactions here, unless there is an emergency or some type of exigent circumstances, or the animal goes to his annual veterinary checkups. So Shran had an intake exam by our veterinarian, Dr. Liza Pfaff, when he arrived in July. And I just took him to the vet again this month, and this is October 2024, to have his annual exam, and he's doing great. And what I really learned from this experience, and also he got a new enclosure this month, is that just by doing choice-based interactions for the first year, meaning I worked a lot around him where he could see me a lot of the time and I could see him a lot of the time. I would open his door frequently and allow him to come out and explore the room if he wanted, but he didn't have to. And I target trained him, so he learned very quickly to respond to the target for food, and then eventually learned that he had to do something first. He didn't just have to respond to the target and he would automatically get food, but he would have to follow the target to his enclosure and a little bit out of his enclosure or across his enclosure or out of hiding, and then he would earn his food. He learned that very quickly. And so I wasn't really handling him or touching him. He got touched when he was at the vet. A couple of times in the first year he was here, when he was out exploring, if I had to put him away, I would just go pick him up and put him away. And so that's how I introduced touch and handling. And what was really rewarding this month is I did more handling of him than I've ever done before. So I removed him from his enclosure and put him in a tub for a few days with his live plant and his black box cages hide and his water dish and his holy roller ball. This was while I was transferring his stuff to his old enclosure to a new, larger enclosure. And while he was in that little tub, I was going out there frequently and taking the lid off and letting him come out and get exercise until his new enclosure was ready. And I was handling him quite a bit when he was doing that, because I would pick him up and move him from places where he really shouldn't be. Then we went to the vet, and I'm going to show you some pictures of our vet visit. And he got handled at the vet for his exam, and he was just great. And after his exam, he stayed with me and hung out on me and crawled around me while I was doing things with other animals. And when it was time to put him back in his transport tub to come home, he didn't really want to go back in his transport tub. He wanted to explore the office. So I would say, based on how I have raised the snake, and he's 3 years old now, that he's really friendly. He's amenable to interacting with people. He has never struck at me. He has never bitten me. I've never had any issues with him being afraid of me. But I've also this whole time not been forceful with him. I've not forced handling. I've not intruded into his personal space. We just developed this relationship over time. So let's just take a look at some photos of him, and it'll give you an idea of what he looks like now and how he's doing. Actually going to start out with some video of him going into his new enclosure for the first time, and I'm going to share some things that I have learned about Macklot's pythons from observing Shran. So one of the things that I have learned is they both burrow and climb, and they are extremely active snakes. So Shran went directly into a 4x2x2 black box cages enclosure when he arrived here on July 12th of 2023, and I noticed pretty quickly that that was too small for him. Not because of his size, because he is just right at about 4 feet long, and he's right now is still a slender snake, but because he is so active. He is burrowing under this brand new substrate. So I literally just set his tub in the enclosure and took the lid off, and he came right out, and the first thing he started exploring was the substrate, and he burrowed underneath it. And eventually he completely disappeared under the substrate where I could no longer see him. And I have noticed with my other Liasis, specifically the Savu pythons, that they also spend a lot of time burrowing, but not all of the time. They spend what I would estimate, and I haven't empirically studied this yet, but I would estimate they spend about 50% of their time burrowing and about 50% of their time climbing or above ground. They also spend some time soaking. So if they have a large water dish, all of my Liasis spend time soaking in water. That's my Savu pythons, my Macklot's python, my olive python, my Dunn's python, and of course my water pythons, Liasis fuscus. They spend lots of time soaking as well. Here is now Shran climbing, and this is what I mean. It might be that you see him burrowing and think, well, a terrestrial enclosure is fine because they spend a lot of time burrowing, but they spend just as much time climbing. So what I am seeing with the Liasis, specifically the Macklot's python and the Savu pythons, the Dunn's python to some extent as well, are that they will sleep burrowed or inside a hide, but when they are active and awake, they spend time climbing. And so oftentimes during the day, I don't see them at all because they're burrowed deep under the soil. But then in the evening or in the middle of the night, they are climbing just as high as they can possibly climb within their enclosures. So more so with the Savu than the Macklot. Shran's actually visible quite a bit. Even during the day, if I'm in there working, he tends to come out to see what I'm doing. And I would say that he burrows less than the Savu pythons. But as you can see here, he's investigating his sky hide. Now, this is the sky hide that was in his old enclosure, and I moved it to the new enclosure. And if you're thinking this new enclosure looks tall, that's because it is a 4 foot wide by 2 feet deep by 4 feet high enclosure. So it's 4 by 2 by 4. The reason I chose this is because I saw how active Shran was in that smaller enclosure, and I also observed how much time he spent climbing during his awake and active hours. And so I've put a cat tree in here that's got some fake leaves on it, but Shran also has a live plant, a big bushy pothos plant that hopefully will continue to grow taller and larger. He's got a large water dish that's big enough for him to get into. He obviously has this sky hide. He's got his holy roller ball. He has a ground hide. He has 2 ground hides. One is a white black box cages square hide, and one is a black reptile basics plastic hide. And he's got 2 water dishes, one to drink from and one to swim in case he wants. And right now I have his transport tub in there. We had just gotten back from our vet visit, and I went ahead and put him in his new enclosure and took the lid off. But he's been using that tub to climb on and also to burrow underneath and hide behind when he's sleeping. And so I really have no reason to take his tub out. That's his tub. It's his transport tub. When he goes to the vet again next year for his checkup, he'll go in that same tub. So I may just leave it in there. But I really wanted to show you guys a few things with this video footage and with these pictures. They're Macklot's pythons, in my opinion, based on Shran, are very active. They both burrow and climb, so I recommend deep substrate as well as lots and lots of things to climb on. Now, this is us when we arrived at the vet. So he's still in his transport tub, and I just took the lid off and I allowed him to come out when he wanted to for his exam. He came out and he climbed on me, and he was very happy to climb on me and use me as a tree during his vet visit. And he climbed in my hair, he climbed on my glasses. He wasn't bashful at all, and he was excellent during his exam. Here he is providing me with some jewelry and different adornment as a necklace and as a hair tie. But he was excellent for his vet exam, and he was really great with our veterinarian. And this was me trying to put him back in the tub when it was time to go home, and he did not want to go back in there. So he was climbing everywhere but inside the tub. All right, well, if you stuck with me till the end, thanks for watching that. Thanks for your interest in animal behavior training and well-being. And thank you for your interest in our Macklot's python Shran. What is my overall impression of that species based on my one animal that I have? I really like him a lot. I really enjoy him a lot, and I would be happy to have another one to assess if Shran is just an outlier and he's just a single wonderful animal and the rest of the species aren't, or if the species is raised with the choice-based interactions, the low stress management, and the cooperative care training that I do with them. If they all turn out this fantastic, I would have more. So until next time, everybody, please remember to always be kind and love your animals.